They'll destroy you. He smiled sadly. Then they'll finally learn what creation means. He pushed the throttle. The ship broke through the clouds just as another missile launched, and too late. A blinding flash filled the sky. The radar screens went blank. From the ground, people saw it as a shooting star, a line of light vanishing into the heavens. The director slammed his fist against the jeep. Find it, it has to come down somewhere. But Clara knew better. She looked up at the empty sky and whispered, "He's gone home." High above Earth, beyond the blue edge of the atmosphere, Elias's ship floated in silence. The mother and daughter slept beside him, safe at last. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, forming a faint path of light. Elias looked down at the glowing Earth, fragile, beautiful, full of fear and hope. "Forgive them," he whispered. "They just don't understand yet." The ship turned slowly toward the unknown, its engines glowing like two hearts beating in unison. Then it vanished into the dark. Space stretched endless and silent, a sea of stars glowing like old memories. Elias Grant sat at the front of the small ship, his hands resting on the dim console. Behind him, the alien mother and daughter slept peacefully, their breathing soft, synchronized, almost musical. The ship drifted through the dark, carried by invisible currents of light that pulsed faintly beneath its hull, like veins in a living being. Elias had stopped counting the days. Time didn't flow the same out here. Sometimes minutes felt like years, and sometimes hours vanished like dust. But one truth remained clear in his heart. Earth was behind him, and what he had created was ahead. The navigation screen flickered. Unknown signals appeared, faint but rhythmic. The same pattern he had seen years ago during the first experiment. It wasn't random. It was a reply, he whispered to himself. They heard her call. The mother stirred, opening her shining eyes. Her voice was calm but heavy. "We are not alone anymore." Elias smiled faintly. "No, we never were." Through the window, distant light shimmered, a ring of blue clouds swirling around a pale star. In the center of that light hung a planet that looked like Earth but not. Two suns, silver oceans, and forests glowing in faint light. Clara had once called his dream impossible, a bridge world for both species. But there it was, alive and waiting. The daughter woke slowly. Her silver eyes reflected both suns. "Is this where we belong?" she asked softly. Elias looked at her, his voice gentle. "This is where all beginnings belong." The ship descended quietly through the atmosphere. The skies glowed with waves of color, blues, golds, and pinks that shimmered like flowing silk. As they touched down, the air hummed faintly. The ground beneath them pulsed, almost breathing. When the door opened, warm wind rushed in, carrying a scent like rain and wildflowers. The mother stepped out first, barefoot on the glowing soil. The daughter followed, smiling faintly. The planet's light reflected off their skin, making them look like living stars. Elias stepped down last. His body was weak now, the connection had drained much of his energy. But he felt peace. For the first time in years, his heartbeat matched the rhythm of the world around him. They walked to a small hill overlooking a valley filled with luminous trees. Above them, the twin suns rose together, one gold, one silver. The mother knelt and touched the ground. "It remembers us," she whispered. The daughter looked up at Elias. "Will the humans ever come?" He smiled sadly. "One day, when they stop looking for power and start looking for purpose." She tilted her head. "And when they do, then they'll find us waiting." Behind them, the ship's console beeped softly, a signal from deep space. Elias walked back and glanced at the screen. It wasn't human frequency, but he recognized it instantly. It was Clara. Her voice broke through the static, faint but clear. "Elias, if you can hear this, the world has changed. The energy your experiment released, it's spreading through the atmosphere. People are changing. Some can feel what others feel. Some can heal with touch. Fear is turning into connection. Maybe this was your plan all along." "If so, thank you," Elias smiled. His eyes softened. "It's not my plan anymore," he said quietly. "It's hers." He looked at the daughter, who was staring at the rising suns. Her eyes glowed with new colors now, gold, silver, and a trace of blue. The first hybrid child had been born between two worlds. But what grew inside her was something greater, a new future shaped not by fear but by understanding. Hours passed. The mother lay under a tree, resting peacefully. Elias sat nearby, sketching symbols in the soil, the same ones that had appeared in his lab years ago. They pulsed softly with light. The daughter sat beside him. "You look tired," she said gently. He chuckled weakly. "Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just finishing my chapter." She leaned against him. "Then who will write the next one?" He looked toward the horizon. "You." As the sun sank low, Elias closed his eyes. His body shimmered, then dissolved into fine blue particles that drifted into the air. The mother and daughter didn't cry. They watched quietly as the particles rose to the sky, joining the light, his essence merging with the planet itself. Night fell, and a new constellation appeared above, a shape of 3 linked stars forming a glowing triangle. The mother whispered, "He has become the bridge." The daughter smiled through tears. "No, mother. He has become the dawn." Far away on Earth, millions of people woke from strange dreams that night. Dreams of blue light, of warmth, of other worlds. Rivers glowed faintly under moonlight. Plants grew faster. Children were born with golden eyes. The world didn't end. It simply began again. And among those who looked up at the stars, many noticed a new one glowing brighter than the rest. One that pulsed like a living heart. They called it Elias's star. As he spoke, the computer screen near the wall flickered. Unknown coordinates appeared. Hundreds of signals lighting up one by one. Clara's eyes widened. "What is that?" Elias stood slowly, his face pale. "That," he said, "is the other half of the experiment. They're waking up." The camera of the story pulls back, showing the cabin glowing faintly in the dark desert, surrounded by invisible signals pulsing outward into space, like a heartbeat reaching for the stars. And far beyond Earth, among the cold void, something began to stir, listening. The storm had passed, but the air still hummed with electricity. The desert stretched endlessly under a dull gray sky, silent except for the low crackle of static in the wind. Inside the old cabin, Dr. Elias Grant stood by the window, staring at the horizon. His reflection looked almost human again, but only almost. His eyes still glowed faintly like fading stars. Behind him, the alien mother and daughter rested side by side. The younger one was still weak, her skin pale and shimmering. The connection between them and that strange shared pulse had stabilized for now, but Elias knew it was temporary. Something had changed. Clara Reed sat by the old computer, replaying the strange signals they had picked up earlier. Each pulse formed a pattern almost like language. "They're responding," she whispered. Whoever or whatever is out there heard her call. Elias turned to her. "Then we don't have much time," she frowned. "Time for what?" He looked down at his hands, faintly trembling. "For humanity to decide what it really is. A species of builders or destroyers." Clara stood up, confused. "You're talking like it's already over." He gave a sad smile. "It is. The moment I merged my DNA with theirs, the line between human and alien vanished. We're already one." Before she could reply, the room filled with a faint vibration. The monitors flickered. Outside, the ground began to rumble. Clara ran to the door and looked out. Dark shapes moved across the sky. At first, she thought they were clouds. Then she realized they were ships. Dozens of them. Silent, metallic, smooth as glass. They hovered above the desert, glowing with the same light that lived inside the aliens' veins. Clara stepped back, whispering, "They found us." Elias didn't move. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "No," he said softly. "I called them." The door suddenly burst open and soldiers poured in, armored, shouting, weapons drawn. The director himself stepped inside, his face hard and furious. "End of the line, Doctor," he growled. "You think you can play God and walk free?" Elias looked at him without fear. "God doesn't play," he said. "He creates. Take him!" The director shouted. Before the soldiers could move, the young alien girl opened her eyes. Her pupils shimmered like starlight. "Stop," she said. The room froze. Every soldier went still, their weapons locked mid-air as if the air itself had turned solid. Clara gasped. The energy in the cabin pulsed through the walls, spreading like light underwater. The mother's body began to glow too, and for the first time since her rescue, she stood, graceful, tall, her silver skin shining like polished moonlight. The director stumbled backward. "What are they doing?" Elias stepped forward. "They're remembering what they are. The bond has awakened. He placed his hand gently over the girl's heart. Her glow brightened. Then, as if sharing the same breath, the mother placed her hand over Elias's chest. The three of them formed a triangle of light. Clara could feel the air vibrating. Her heartbeat matched theirs. The entire cabin shook. The soldiers tried to move but couldn't. Every machine, every metal piece, every wire began to hum, resonating with that same rhythm. Then Elias spoke, his voice echoing strangely, layered with something more than human. Years ago, I believed I could save humanity with science. But humanity needed something greater, connection. Love beyond blood, life beyond one world. That's what they represent. The director screamed, "You'll wipe out the human race." Elias turned his gaze on him. No, humanity will wipe itself out if it refuses to change. Suddenly, the roof cracked open with a deafening roar. A beam of light from the hovering ship shone directly onto the cabin, wrapping Elias and the two aliens in a column of blue energy. The soldiers fell to the floor, covering their faces. Clara stood frozen, her eyes wide with awe. Elias looked at her one last time. "You are right, Clara. Science alone isn't enough. But maybe love is." The light expanded. The cabin vanished into it. When the beam faded, the space was empty. No bodies, no fire. Only scorched sand and quiet wind. Above, the ships began to rise higher, fading into the clouds until they were gone. The soldiers stumbled outside, confused and afraid. The director shouted orders, but no one listened. The air smelled like ozone and rain. Clara walked forward to where the cabin had stood. Something glittered in the sand, a single glowing crystal. When she picked it up, it pulsed gently in her hand. Inside the crystal, faint shapes moved. Two small forms curled together like unborn children. She whispered, "Elias." "What did you do?" The crystal pulsed once, then faded. Clara looked up at the sky, realizing something chilling. The stars above had shifted. They were no longer in the same pattern. A new constellation was forming, glowing faintly in the shape of a heart. Far beyond Earth, aboard the largest ship, Elias opened his eyes. He stood beside the mother and daughter, both now awake, both smiling softly. The stars stretched endlessly before them. He whispered, "It's time to finish what we started." And as their ship disappeared into the void, the earth below pulsed once with faint blue light, as if the planet itself had started to breathe again. The world changed overnight, across the skies. Strange lights appeared and silent, shifting, like veins of blue lightning threading through the clouds. Governments called it a cosmic event. The public called it the second dawn, but deep in the desert, Clara Reed knew exactly what it meant. Elias Grant was alive, and he was leaving. She stood at the ruins where the cabin once stood. The sand still shimmered faintly from the beam that had taken him. Behind her, helicopters circled, soldiers shouted, and radio waves buzzed with fear. Everyone wanted the same thing, to capture what they could not understand. "Ma'am," a soldier called. "HQ says they're tracking 3 life signatures moving north, fast." Clara's heart skipped. "Then they're still on Earth," she whispered. Miles away, under the cover of night, Elias moved through the canyon with the alien mother and daughter. The desert wind howled like an ancient voice warning them to hurry. The girl's light flickered with every step. The bond between her and her mother was weakening again. "Just a little farther," Elias said. "There's an old launch site ahead. We can use it to reach orbit." The mother looked at him with tired eyes. "They are afraid of us," he nodded. "Humans fear what they don't control. But fear can't stop truth." Behind them, a low hum rose. Drones, black and sharp, sweeping across the rocks. Red scanning beams cut through the darkness. "They found us," the girl said quietly. Elias turned, his face set. "Then we run." They ran through the canyon as beams of red light sliced through the night. Sand burst around their feet. One drone fired, missing by inches. The shockwave threw them to the ground. "Go!" Elias shouted, pulling the girl up. The mother turned and raised her hand. A flash of blue light exploded from her palm, disabling 2 drones instantly. Sparks rained down. Clara, watching through a tracking feed at the base, froze as the footage glitched. "They're fighting back," a soldier said. "No," Clara whispered. "They're protecting each other." The trio reached the edge of the canyon. Below them lay the remains of an old airfield, rusted towers, broken satellites, and one forgotten hangar. Elias sprinted down, smashing the lock. Inside, buried under tarps, was what he'd hidden years ago, the prototype ship he'd built before his disappearance. It still flies? The girl asked weakly. He smiled faintly. It never stopped waiting. They powered it up. The old engines roared to life, shaking dust from the ceiling. Blue energy flooded the panels. The ship glowed, alive again. Outside, military jeeps arrived. Soldiers spread out, guns raised. The director stepped out, his coat flapping in the storm wind. "Elias Grant," he shouted through a loudspeaker. "Surrender the specimens." Elias looked at the girl. "Specimens," he muttered bitterly. "That's what they call you." He helped them aboard and turned to face the door one last time. "I once believed humanity could share this world," he said quietly. "Now I know it must be earned." The soldiers opened fire. Bullets hit the force field, melting before impact. Elias sealed the hatch. "Hold on," he said. "This will be rough." The engines flared. The ship lifted off the ground, tearing through dust and metal. The blast threw soldiers backward as lightning danced around the hull. Clara, watching from the base miles away, whispered to herself, "Elias, don't leave us behind." Inside the cockpit, alarms blared. The girl leaned weakly against her mother. "Father," she said softly, "it hurts." Elias pressed his hand to her chest. "Stay with me. We're almost free." Outside, missiles locked on. One struck near the tail, shaking the ship violently. The lights dimmed. "She's losing energy," the mother said, holding her daughter close. "She cannot survive another hit." Elias's face hardened. "Then I'll give her mine." He placed his glowing hand over hers, transferring his energy. Blue veins spread across both their arms. His face paled, but her color returned. Clara's voice came through the old radio channel, crackling with static. "Elias, if you can hear me, stop." But he wasn't the same man anymore. The night sky glowed blue over the desert. Dust rolled across the dunes as if something unseen was breathing through the earth. Inside the underground base, alarms wailed and screens flashed warnings. Unidentified energy signature detected. Dr. Clara Reed stood frozen in the control room. She could see the two alien females still in their containment area. The mother's eyes open now, glowing like liquid silver, and the daughter clinging to her hand. Both looked calm while everything around them shook. Then the tremor stopped. Silence filled the air, thick and uneasy. The monitors went black for a moment and came back with strange symbols on the screen. Not human letters, not numbers, something unknown. The guard shouted, "What's happening?" Clara whispered, "He's communicating." Moments later, the elevator door opened with a heavy clang. Dust and blue light spilled into the corridor. A tall figure stepped out and covered in a dark suit, his skin faintly luminescent. The soldiers aimed their guns instantly, but Clara recognized him before anyone spoke. "Elias." It was Dr. Elias Grant, alive but not human anymore. His eyes shimmered with the same light as the aliens. His face looked older but untouched by time, and faint patterns glowed under his skin like veins made of light. The soldiers shouted, "Hands where we can see them." Elias raised his hands slowly. "You won't stop me," he said calmly. "They're not your prisoners. They're my family." No one dared move. The young alien girl ran to the glass wall and pressed her palms against it. "Father!" she cried. The word made the soldiers freeze. Clara stepped forward. "Elias, what did you do?" He looked at her with sadness in his eyes. "I tried to save us, Clara, but they never wanted salvation, only control. The project wasn't just about creating life. It was about binding it," she frowned. "Binding?" He nodded slowly. "The experiment was meant to connect species through shared DNA. One mind, one heartbeat. I used my own genetic code to build the link. The mother and daughter, they carry me. Both of them. They're parts of the same whole." The guards exchanged nervous looks. One whispered, "He's insane." Elias continued, his voice calm but powerful. "They carry the same child because that child is the bridge. A single being divided between two wombs, and one cannot survive without the other." Clara's hands shook. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," Elias replied, "just forbidden." Suddenly, red lights flashed. More soldiers flooded the corridor. The man in the black uniform, the director, stormed in. "Dr. Grant," he said sharply, "you are under arrest for violation of national security and unauthorized genetic experimentation." Elias laughed softly. "You can't arrest what you don't understand." "Take him," the director ordered. The soldiers moved forward, but the moment they stepped closer, the air around Elias shimmered like heat. Their guns jammed. Sparks flew from the lights above. Elias turned toward the observation room. His eyes met the mother's. "It's time," he said. The two alien females rose from their beds. The glass separating them began to vibrate. The lights flickered, then exploded in a shower of sparks. The thick glass melted like ice, forming a bright opening between the rooms. The soldiers shouted and opened fire, but the bullets slowed mid-air, turning to dust before touching him. The young alien stepped forward and raised her hand. A ripple of energy pushed everyone backward as if an invisible wave had hit them. Clara covered her face, her ears ringing from the sound. When she looked again, Elias was standing beside them, holding both their hands. "You built this place to control life," he said, staring at the director. "But you forgot that life cannot be owned." The director, fleeting from his temple, gasped, "You'll destroy everything." Elias shook his head. "No, I'll remind it what it means to be alive." The walls started to crack. The lab's metal floors glowed with strange blue symbols, the same ones that had appeared on the screens earlier. The mother whispered something in her alien tongue, soft, sorrowful. The daughter's eyes filled with tears. Clara shouted, "Elias, stop! The energy is unstable!" He turned to her. "You always believed science was about answers, Clara, but sometimes it's about faith." The ceiling split open, revealing the desert night above. The blue beam from the sky widened, connecting directly to Elias and the two aliens. The energy wrapped around them like ribbons of light. Clara shielded her eyes as the blinding light filled the room. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went still. When the light faded, the room was empty. The containment beds were gone. The beam disappeared into the sky, leaving behind only scorched metal and quiet air. The soldiers slowly stood up, dazed. The director screamed, "Find them!" But no one moved. The computers had all shut down. The data was wiped. Every recording, every file, gone. Clara stood alone among the ruins, her heart pounding. On the floor near the melted glass, she saw something small and shining, a pendant. Inside it was a holographic image of Elias smiling, holding a newborn baby. On the back were 3 words etched in light. "The experiment lives." Clara held the pendant tightly. Somewhere out there, Elias and his strange family were alive. And whatever they carried inside them wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was the future. Rain fell across the desert for the first time in years. Lightning flashed over the sand, washing everything in pale blue light. In the middle of nowhere, a small cabin stood hidden among rocks, old, wooden, and silent. Inside, the air was warm and filled with the hum of strange machines. Dr. Elias Grant sat beside a fire, his face half in shadow. Across from him, the alien mother rested on a bed, weak but breathing. Her daughter sat close, watching the flames. Her silver eyes reflected the light like mirrors, yet there was something human in her gaze. Curiosity, pain, and a quiet strength. Clara Reed stood near the doorway. She had followed them after the explosion at the lab. She didn't know why, maybe guilt, maybe wonder. Elias hadn't stopped her. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly. "They'll be searching for us." Clara folded her arms. "I had to see. To understand." The young girl turned to her. "You want the truth," she said in her gentle, melodic voice. "So do I." Clara hesitated. "Tell me then. What are you?" The girl looked down at her hands. The skin shimmered faintly, veins glowing like starlight beneath the surface. "We were not born," she said quietly. "We were made." Elias closed his eyes. "She doesn't have to remember." But the girl continued, her voice calm and clear. "I do remember, Father. Every sound, every dream. You created us in the chamber of mirrors. Mother was the first. I was the reflection. You said we were hope, but I was only the copy." Clara frowned. "Copy?" The girl nodded. "Mother carried the original child in the human-alien bond. I was designed to hold its echo, a duplicate heartbeat to balance hers. If she died, I would die too. We were never separate." Elias stood up, his voice heavy with regret. "It wasn't supposed to be like that. The system linked your bodies to protect the DNA. I thought the bond would make you stronger." The girl's eyes glistened with tears that shimmered like silver rain. "You made me strong, yes, but you made me half a life." Outside, thunder rumbled. Clara stepped closer, her heart aching. If you're connected, what happens if something happens to one of you? The girl's voice dropped. Then the other fades, not dies instantly but slowly, like a song losing its last note. The mother stirred in her bed, whispering in her alien language. Elias hurried to her side. Her body was glowing faintly, her skin translucent. The energy pulse that connected her to her daughter was flickering like a weak light. She's fading, Elias muttered. Her link is unstable after the transport. Clara looked around at the machines. Can we fix it? He shook his head. Not here. We need the original stabilizer from the lab, but it's gone. The girl stood up, her hands glowing. Then I'll give her mine. Elias turned sharply. No, if you transfer your life force, you'll weaken. She smiled softly. I was made to mirror her. If I can be her reflection, I can be her light too. Before he could stop her, she touched her mother's forehead. A pulse of blue light spread through the room, making every machine flicker. Clara shielded her eyes. When the light dimmed, the mother's breathing had grown steady again, but the daughter's face had turned pale. Elias caught her as she fell. Why would you do this? He whispered. The girl smiled faintly. Because you taught me what humans call love. He held her tightly, tears forming in his eyes. Clara felt her own throat tighten. The scene before her didn't feel like science anymore. It felt like something ancient and sacred. A mother, a daughter, and the man who created them, all bound by one fragile heartbeat. Hours passed in silence. The fire burned low. The storm outside began to fade. Elias sat motionless beside the sleeping girl, his hands glowing faintly as he tried to stabilize her vitals. Clara finally spoke. Elias, why did you create them? He didn't look up. Because I saw what was coming. The human race is dying, not from disease or war, but from arrogance. We keep breaking everything we touch. I wanted to build something that could heal both sides. A bridge. But I didn't realize the bridge could feel pain, Clara whispered. And now? Elias finally looked at her, his voice steady but distant. Now it's too late to hide. The link between them isn't just biological anymore. It's cosmic. Every time their hearts beat, the signal spreads across the network I created. Someone, or something, will answer soon. The night was silent over the desert. The sand was cold and the air still. Only the hum of wind moved between the dry rocks. Then suddenly a light cut through the darkness into bright white and alive. It wasn't a falling star. It was something different, something no one had ever seen before. A strange silver craft tore across the sky and crashed behind the dunes with a sound that shook the ground. Birds flew away, dogs barked, and the lonely highway lights flickered. For a few seconds, everything went still again, like the world was holding its breath. Sheriff Miles, who was driving home from the night patrol, saw the flash. He stopped his jeep and grabbed his flashlight. Probably a meteor, he said to himself, but his voice trembled. When he reached the crash site, the sand was smoking and warm under his boots. The craft was half buried, glowing faintly like a dying ember. He called the emergency line. Within minutes, a rescue team and 2 scientists from a nearby research base arrived. They wore masks and silver suits. None of them spoke much. The air smelled of metal and burning dust. When they opened the cracked door of the craft, a soft sound came from inside. Not mechanical, not human. It was the weak cry of something alive. The light from the flashlight touched 2 figures curled together. A woman and a child, or at least they looked like that. The woman's skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes shimmered with soft silver light. The smaller one beside her, a young girl, had the same eyes but warmer, gentler. They were breathing but barely. Get the medkits, shouted one of the rescuers. They lifted the 2 carefully out of the ship and laid them on stretchers. When the doctor scanned them, the machine made strange beeping sounds it had never made before. The readings didn't make sense. These are not normal humans, whispered Dr. Clara Reed, the lead scientist. Her voice carried both fear and wonder. Their anatomy, it's close but not exact. The sheriff crossed himself quietly. Are they dangerous? He asked. Clara didn't answer. She was staring at the scanner screen, her mouth slightly open. The display showed 2 small heartbeat signals, one for each of them. But beside each heartbeat was another smaller pulse. It took her a moment to realize what it meant. They're both pregnant, she said softly. Everyone froze. Even the desert wind stopped. The rescuers looked at one another in disbelief. The mother looked barely alive. The girl couldn't have been more than 17. How is that possible? Whispered one medic. Their mother and daughter. Clara checked again. Yes, but both carry the same genetic signature. And it's human. The sheriff took a step back. What are you saying? Clara's hands shook as she removed her gloves. I'm saying they're both carrying a child, from the same man. Before anyone could speak, the older alien woman opened her eyes. They glowed faintly under the moonlight. She looked at Clara and whispered a single word. A name. Elias. Then she went still again, her head falling to the side. The team rushed to stabilize her. The younger one suddenly gripped Clara's wrist with surprising strength. Don't let them take us, she said in broken English. He will come. He promised. Before Clara could respond, black cars appeared at the edge of the dunes. Government vehicles, no lights, no markings. Men in suits stepped out and flashed badges. They spoke in short, cold sentences. The sheriff was told to leave. The rescuers were dismissed. Within minutes, the crash site was sealed off with bright yellow drones that circled like silent bees. The two beings were loaded into armored vans and driven away under armed escort. Dr. Clara Reed was ordered to follow. The desert was empty again, only the burned sand remained, glowing faintly where the ship had been. Hours later, deep inside an underground laboratory, Clara watched through a glass wall as the two aliens lay on separate medical beds. Their vitals blinked slowly on the monitors. The young one's hand twitched, reaching toward her mother through the barrier. Clara could see fear and love in that small motion. A soldier behind her said, "The director wants full scans and DNA results by morning." Clara nodded, but her mind was racing. That name, Elias. She had heard it before. Dr. Elias Grant, the scientist who disappeared 10 years ago while working on a project called Crosslife. He had been her mentor once. His theories were dismissed as impossible. The idea of mixing human and non-human DNA to create life that could survive beyond Earth. Now, looking at the two sleeping beings, Clara realized his work had not only succeeded, it had gone far beyond human control. She turned away from the glass, her heart beating fast. Somewhere out there, if he was still alive, Dr. Elias Grant had created something no one was ready for. And the proof was lying right in front of her. A mother and daughter, both carrying the same man's child. Outside, lightning flickered across the desert sky again, as if the heavens themselves were warning what was coming next. The desert had gone quiet, but deep below the surface, the secret laboratory was alive. The sound of machines filled the cold air, constant hums, quiet beeps, screens flickering with unreadable data. Dr. Clara Reed stood beside the observation glass, staring at the two alien females who had survived the crash. The younger one was awake now, her glowing eyes following every person in the room. The older one still lay unconscious, her breathing shallow and uneven. Clara had seen strange things in her career, but nothing like this. Their scans were impossible to explain. Identical DNA patterns, yet two different bodies. Even stranger, both carried human embryos, from the same man. And that name the mother had whispered before fainting still echoed in her mind. Elias. The name wasn't just familiar. It haunted her. 10 years ago, Elias Grant had been her mentor, a brilliant genetic scientist with wild theories about human evolution. He believed that to save the species from extinction, humans needed to merge with something greater. Then one day he vanished. His lab burned down, his notes destroyed, and the government shut everything related to his research. Everyone assumed he was dead, but now, she wasn't sure anymore. A man in a black uniform walked into the room. He was tall, stern-faced, wearing a badge with no name. "Dr. Reed," he said, "you'll be transferred to Project Haven. You will study the subjects and report only to me. No one else is to know they exist." Clara looked at him sharply. "Subjects? They're living beings." "They're not human," he replied coldly. "And if you value your career, you'll remember that." Before she could argue, the young alien stirred. She pressed her palm against the glass. "Where is he?" she asked softly. Her voice carried a strange rhythm, calm but aching. "Where is Elias?" The guard looked at Clara, irritated. "She understands English?" Clara nodded slowly. "Some of it, yes." The girl's silver eyes filled with tears. "He said he will return for us, when the stars change color." She pointed to the ceiling where a bright light blinked like a false sky. But the stars here are wrong. Clara's heart twisted. The girl wasn't lying. Her voice was too innocent, too desperate. What do you mean by return? The girl looked at her and her words came out like broken glass. He made us. My mother and me. But he left before the last child was ready. The guard frowned. Last child? But the girl didn't answer. She closed her eyes and began to hum softly. A haunting tune that made the room fall silent. The machines flickered strangely as if reacting to her voice. The lights dimmed, screens glitched, alarms briefly flashed, then vanished. Shut that down. The guard barked, but Clara stepped forward. Stop, she's not attacking. The energy, it's resonating. Her voice is connected to the equipment. The humming stopped. The girl opened her eyes again and whispered, He's close. I can feel him. That night, Clara stayed in the lab alone. She pulled up Elias Grant's old research files, the ones she had secretly kept. The files were corrupted, but one video remained. In it, a younger Elias looked straight into the camera, his face lit by a blue glow. He said, If you're watching this, it means I failed to stop them. They want power, not unity. They'll take the hybrids apart piece by piece. But the real secret isn't the DNA, it's the bond. If they are ever separated, the world will see the truth of what we became. The video ended abruptly, leaving only static. Clara leaned back, shaken. Bond, separated? What did that mean? Suddenly, the security alarm beeped. Unauthorized activity detected. She looked at the monitor. The young alien was awake again, standing beside her mother's bed. Both their hands were glowing with soft blue light, and the energy around them pulsed like a heartbeat. Clara rushed in. What are you doing? The girl turned, her expression calm. She's calling him. He will hear us now. Before Clara could respond, the lights in the lab flickered violently. A strange vibration filled the air, not from inside the base, but from above. The earth itself trembled. Far away, radar stations picked up an unknown signal descending from orbit. The same signature matched the crashed ship's energy pattern. Whatever was coming wasn't random. It was searching. The guard ran in, shouting, We've got another object entering the atmosphere. Clara looked through the glass at the two aliens. The mother's eyes opened, glowing brighter now, her lips forming that same name once again. Elias. The girl smiled through tears. He's here. Outside, thunder rolled through the night sky without clouds. A beam of blue light cut through the clouds and struck the desert floor miles away. And for the first time in 10 years, Dr. Elias Grant walked back into Earth's atmosphere.